Hi and welcome. I'm Natalia. Welcome to my channel. Here I speak about the methodology of achieving native-like fluency. When people ask me what native-like fluency is, I usually say that this is the level that starts when you have accomplished all the other levels. There are no textbooks anymore. There are no courses anymore that you can take. There are no certificates anymore that will tell you that you have attained a native-like fluency. However, you don't feel like you want to stop because it makes no sense to stop. You're already good, but you want to keep going. And it's important to understand here that we don't just continue for the sake of continuing something. We also achieve very tangible results. You see the improvement. You can track your own progress. Performance is key. And today I'm inviting you to join a conversation with a guest of mine where we will be talking a lot about performance and how we apply performance to learning a language and to other spheres of life. Please meet Alex. Hi, so good to have you here.
Hi, Natalia. I'm Alexei Savin. I'm a consulting principal and in a life science company, and I'm responsible for overseeing consulting units of the company across Eastern European countries. In my day job, I do help other life science companies in improving their sales performance, in excelling in operations, in providing support in entering new markets. And what I especially like is when my clients come back to me with some reflections on the impact my team and I made to their actual results.
So it's all about results, it's all about performance.
It's all about results, it's all about increased sales, market share, reduced costs, or some strategic insights on launching new products or entering new markets. And that also translates into my personal life.
In what way?
I'm a father of a 2-year-old daughter, and I am really keen in improving my parenting.
Your parenting skills.
Parenting skills and my health, performance, and in achieving great results in other relationships, starting with myself, like my own understanding of my own motivations and drives, down to communication skills with other people.
I think that's the key here when we talk about continuous learning or lifelong learning. It really is important to establish good relationships with yourself so that you don't self-sabotage your learning process and you understand why you're doing this and what drives you and how you do it best. It's very interesting. But when did we meet? I think it's been how many years?
I think we know each other for 4.5 years.
Yeah, I think it's been like 4.5 years. I remember we met when you applied for the public speaking course and you took the public speaking course for non-native speakers, right?
Yeah, right. I changed my position just before starting the course. And I realized I needed to have more confidence and more public speaking skills. And majority of my clients are international companies which speak in English. So I had to improve not only just public speaking, but public speaking in English. And I joined the course with an intent to gain extra confidence, extra presence in the public speaking course back then. And
do you still deliver presentations?
I still do the presentations.
I think you do them like 3 times a day or something.
Yeah, I do the presentations a few times a week. And all the time with presentations, I realized that I don't need to be more confident of the public, but I'm now focusing more on making an impact and achieving better results from one-to-one conversations.
I have a question now. You're saying, I don't need to be more confident in public. Is it because you already are, or you already have enough experience and enough practice that allows you to communicate with more confidence? Or is that just not needed at all? What do you mean?
I mean that I've realized that I really need to think about the person I'm talking to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And with this realization, I really understood that it makes conversation way more engaging for both parties and way more.
So if I hear you correctly, you're saying that back then, 4 years ago, your primary motivation was just to get more experience and to become a confident speaker in English. And now
it's shifted. I recall one of the conversations with my clients when we worked at the project, and we then needed to communicate the results to a board of the clients, native speakers, and I've communicated great insights, which was coming from the analysis and from the teamwork. I've done a couple of attempts, 2 or 3 attempts, and then a colleague of mine who was a native speaker just explained the same thing in a more concise and way, which basically and everyone understood in the audience. So, which drove me to an idea that probably it's not just the quality of the insights, but also the way of communicating them, which makes it clear to the audience and to the person.
It makes me think of what I read recently, what is a good idea? Everybody has good ideas. And there was this line that I remember very well, which says, regular and unremarkable people have great ideas every day, but how much are they worth? Execution is key.
Absolutely. So with this example, I just basically realized that bringing great ideas is one thing,
it's
but
not enough in your case,
it's not
right?
enough. It's delivering in a way in a convincing way that clients would perceive them and would basically adopt them in their own business decisions. Communication is key here.
Do you mean adopt or adapt?
Adapt.
Like with an O or with an A?
Basically make use of them and use them in their own.
So probably adopt and with an O. So you
adopt. Sorry,
adopt, not adapt. As a consultant, what do you need to do so that clients actually not just believe that your ideas are good, but they adopt them? How do you really need to communicate so that people take action?
In most cases, we are coming to the clients with a team of pretty young consultants, and who
how young is young in this today?
Yeah, it's like
how young is young?
late 20s, 30 years old.
Okay,
and
late 20s,
when they are at the same time they're in the industry for 2-3 years, and they talk to senior people who are 20 years in a role in the industry. They know everything about their business.
Absolutely.
And when you come and you have a project of 1 or 2, 3 months, and you talk to people who are like years in their business, they know everything. You need first to really understand them. What is the setup? And the challenge is that basically you need to bring something which they don't know about their business.
Even though they've been in this business for 20 years, right?
Exactly, absolutely.
How much time do you usually get to analyze the situation and bring them your ideas, your insights about whatever they need to change in their business?
It's a significant portion of the project.
But how long does it take to analyze it?
It depends on the task and depends on the project, but it might take up to 20-30% of the time to get to know the client situation quite well. And it's also needed for accepting the insights which we will bring later on.
How do people take these messages? Do you see a lot of rejection? How easy is it to communicate to people what it is they're doing wrong?
It's definitely not as easy. But this initial part is critical in order to understand, to really get to know their motivations, their assumptions they were basing their solutions on. And once people make sure that you know them quite well, then they start to believe you and they start to trust the judgments you come with.
And the quality or the way you communicate and the quality of your communication, I guess, plays a crucial role here.
Quality of communication plays a crucial role indeed, and because it's a very limited time, and you need to communicate in a quite concise and an impactful way that it basically delivers a message across.
And this is what you've been practicing lately, right?
Yeah, and this is the area where you can excel even more and
exactly.
more.
There's no finite goal here.
Yes. And this is and because it depends on and the art of excelling in this, basically it depends on different type of people, different type of situations, how to communicate in different circumstances. That's challenging.
You need to understand what person is in front of you before you start giving some advice, right? And it's important for you right now to think more about who am I talking to. And when we met 4 years ago, I think you were based in Moscow, but you had a different role. Right now, when you oversee the market and the companies in the Eastern Europe, you have to communicate more with people from Europe whose native language is different from yours. And I guess you use small talk and you do small talk to get to know people better, even though not everybody uses small talk with this intention. But can you share some of your findings about small talk? Because let's say for Russians, it's just a waste of time for so many people. They don't see a point in small talk. How is it in Eastern Europe? What has been your experience so far?
I've evolved with my understanding of small talks over time. Yeah, because small talks, it's less about like Russians or other nations. It's more about people who are thinking who need to operate in a competitive environment versus people versus other types of environment. And when you are operating in a competitive environment, in order to kind of win the deal or deliver your message across, you need to really understand the patterns person in front of you thinks of. And for this, small talk is basically serves a very specific purpose.
Which
of
purpose?
Understanding of a person background, where he or she is coming from, and how can I adjust my communication strategies to deliver the message across. That's
pretty much, it gives you a competitive advantage. Understanding.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense for me, and it's also the more relaxed person is, the easier it's communication is also.
It just flows better.
Yeah.
Because, small talk for so many people is just something that we do before we start talking about business. Some unimportant, and when I ask people to define what small talk is, they actually say this is some unimportant conversation before you get to business, before you get to talking business. And people think that small talk is something that you do because you're not allowed to sell straight away. So it's something that you say before you're allowed to actually present or demo your thing or start selling. And I think if the intention is this, to kill the time before we actually get down to business, then people really do what a lot of people dread and a lot of people don't like. They ask this predictable questions. Oh, how is the weather? How is the COVID situation? And it's the same questions, every time. And it really gets repetitive, boring, and just not sincere, because you feel that a person is not sincerely interested in making small talk. They just think it's a polite thing to do. But I think what you're saying is very different. And I have been actually using small talk this way myself. It's your opportunity to understand a person a little bit better, to get to know them a little bit better. How are they feeling today? How do they think? Where do they come from? In what language do I need to deliver information to them? I don't mean English, French, or Russian, but the language of perception. How should I frame it so that they receive it?
and what specific pieces of information would be of a greater value for them.
Yeah, maybe you should. Usually during small talk, I decide if I should restructure my plan and my presentation completely, and
Absolutely.
I should start from the end, not the way I planned it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just the small talk. It's also, you see this. You have to be prepared to ditch your strategy and change everything on the spot.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree.
You do this as well, right?
I do this as well, and this in my kind of presentations, in my business conversations, I do. Of course, I do prepare to prepare a pitch or delivery results, but based on my understanding of the person in front of me, I can skip some of the parts or restructure my way of communicating that, or even sometimes even put off some a presentation and start just a one-to-one discussion on the agenda.
Yeah, exactly. And I like to decide on the agenda of the meeting together before we actually begin, so that it doesn't feel like we're following my agenda. We actually end this together. But about small talk, I wanted to come back to this and ask you if you have actually noticed any differences. Because trust me, I used to be that person, and I used to have this base assumption that Russian people hate small talk. They cannot make small talk, and we don't appreciate small talk. I'm also a Russian native speaker. And then with time, I realized that there's not really so much difference. If you're a Russian native speaker, if you're an English native speaker, English native speakers also dread small talk. A lot of people don't really know what to say. And it's not really about, it's not the matter of what your first language is. It's more, to me, it's rather a matter of intention.
Yeah.
What's your intent here?
I agree completely. I just was also going to reiterate this intention part. And in small talk, it's captivating, and it's interesting to continue when you see there is an intention to get to know you from some other people.
And there's genuine interest, right?
Genuine interest, yeah. And you continue, and sometimes it's a really big part of the entire conversation.
And because in Russian, when people do business, I see this all the time as well. So if business is a very formal part of the conversation, small talk is something informal. But if you think about really big deals that are being closed in Russia, there's this informal part of the conversation is always there. People probably just don't think it's small talk, but it's always there.
Absolutely. You need to start from something.
Yes. And you need to start with a person. That's basically, to me, what small talk is. We start not from the first point of on our agenda, but we start with a person who is in front of you.
Yeah, my experience is that there are people, both in Russia and in other countries, where when they are not really comfortable with small talks, and they try to kind of skip it, to omit it, and then I just turn it more towards like my intentions and my goals for a meeting, and why I get to know them, and why I'm talking to them.
So if you mean if people don't want to do small talk, this is what you do instead.
Yeah, it's just a way. It's still a small talk, but it's a big portion
of
it
on
my side. It's also sometimes it depends.
But pretty much you're sending an invitation.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
people, like, you can accept the invitation, you can reject the invitation, but you send the invitation to join this informal conversation and to talk.
Yeah, and I adjust. If people are not eager to talk about themselves, then they are more like to listen. So okay, fine, that's fine.
Okay. By the way, you also mentioned preparation. Do you still prepare a lot for your presentations? Because you just mentioned that you can just ditch your plan immediately. But how do you prepare now?
I still do prepare, but it's the focus of the preparation has shifted. And if before I was like going through what I'm going to say, but now it's more about understanding the client situation and understanding what kind of components I'm going to of my proposal or my delivery I'm going to combine, and thinking about the way how I would communicate that to the client, thinking about other people on the client side who might have different views and what kind of objections they can bring to the table. And but I do still prepare, and I sometimes, when I come unprepared, it still can be not a great discussion.
So even if people feel that they have enough experience, they don't need to prepare. For you, it doesn't work, right?
For me, it doesn't work because every time a discussion is goes in a different direction. These are individual projects and individual client situations, so you need to come prepared.
If I ask myself this question, do I prepare? I think yes, I always prepare, but I'm always prepared to get interrupted. Or I'm always prepared for that. Look, there can be a technical problem. People can ask a question that you haven't thought of. Or somebody might just, I don't know, interrupt the whole meeting. My favorite was, that happened quite often actually. In the public speaking course, some students would say, what do I do in this situation when I am all prepared to present my ideas and my findings to the board of directors? And then people look at my slides and they say, what's this on the slide? Where is it from? Where is this number from? And she cannot, or he cannot follow the plan. They have to stop and explain what this number is doing here. Or when somebody, let's say the chairman says, okay, let's skip the slides. Let's move on. And again, it disrupts the flow of the presentation, and a person is just never ready for that. So I learned it the hard way as well, that if I'm not ready for interruptions, I can never feel confident. So I just have to prepare myself for that as well. So, has this happened to you as well?
Yeah, that happens quite many times. So, and my preparation, this is why my preparation is focused on more about knowing the agenda of the audience and knowing what are the might be the challenges of those people. And sometimes I can even predict some of the questions of some of the people. So if we are showing some of the results which are contradictory to their previous thinking, there's definitely going to be a question.
How do you deal with that? Again, how do you deal with rejection when people say, like, they are not ready to accept your insights?
We do build a process in our projects when we deliver the results in chunks, like one piece of the outcomes and then in another piece, and then we build the final outcome together with the client. And at some point we both of us come to a conclusion that the only potential option, or like potential options, might be only this one, or A, B, and C, and not D. And this is sometimes quite hard to perceive for the clients at the emotional level, but it's really hard to deny on the logical and analytical level. And communication here helps to build this trustful relationship and build this trust. And the final step, like on the emotional level, when you need to make it, and you need some extra trust.
You mentioned that your team of consultants is very young. This is a team of young people. Do they all need to have the same communication, the same quality of communication skills, managing their own emotional state, making sure that they can prevent the conflict, or that they deliver probably sometimes the inconvenient truth, or they deliver some intimate, delicate information to a client in a way that doesn't hurt the relationship? Do they all need to learn or to be able to communicate in this way, or is it just you and people in the management?
Basically, these are the skills consultants need to learn, and that these are for all of the people. Of course, we work in teams, and these are junior people. There are junior people, more senior people, and depending on the client seniority, we adjust who delivers which pieces of the message.
Do you believe people can learn the skills in the corporate environment? Because some people just lack life experience to understand all this, how to communicate such delicate information, and how to deal with clients who might get resentful or upset, or
Yeah, but you in many cases you cannot separate your
Yeah.
experience
Absolutely.
from like life experience and corporate experience.
Yeah,
And
that's
people in such situations, when they see a number of cases in the corporate environment, they adopt for their own.
It becomes their life experience.
It becomes their life experience, and they learn, and
They practice and they learn at the same time.
they
right?
practice and they learn. Yeah, that's the only way. Progress.
How are you working on your communication skills right now? Because you're saying your goal is clarity, communicating concise, clear messages to people. What do you do right now to practice that, apart from the fact that you have to communicate a lot in English every day?
I've all the time I've been taking some of the courses from you and from other coaches on delivering the message. I also listen to my own presentations from time to time. That also helps to see, and some clients or some of my colleagues come back with a feedback that was exceptionally good. That wasn't so good. And I listen to the podcasts on the healthcare, entrepreneurship, investing. And
this is a powerful exercise, actually, to watch a video of your own presentation. This was so hard for everyone to do, and it's still hard for people to do. Those people who are just starting out, and those people who are just starting to learn about themselves and about presenting in English. Where are you now, like with your English skills? Do you feel that it's enough? Okay, you can practice clarity. Is it more about English? Like, is it clarity on English, or is it clarity in general? Are you okay with your English skills? Are you doing anything to advance your English skills? Like, are you okay with what you have right now? And
sometimes it's hard to separate and just to divorce like the skills, language skills versus like thinking skills, and
yes,
it comes both interlinked. And in the consulting communication, I do basically practice thinking, clear thinking and clear communication, and structuring the message on a daily basis on my kind of emails, presentations.
And this is what you do beyond language. It's something what you do.
It's something which I'm doing anyway, like in both Russian, English, or any language. But on top of that, I trying to kind of really borrow some of the good. I listen to podcasts. I listen to watch some videos. And I try to borrow some of, and even in my conversations with colleagues, I'm trying to kind of borrow some of the good ways of communicating some complex ideas.
Something that you would have said differently, but when you hear how native speakers say it, let's say this example with your colleague who did it beautifully, right? So maybe you can borrow something from them. It's actually what I say to all my students all the time, and it comes as a surprise for most people that at a certain point, when you understand that there are no more courses to take, right? Like, no language school will work with you because they say you're already good, just go home, you know everything. At some point, you really have to pay attention to your thinking skills if you want to change your language skills. It's not about consuming more words, more grammar, more content any longer. It's really about becoming aware of how you think, because the way we think translates then to how we speak and how we write in any language. And if we think in half sentences, or if our thoughts are very abrupt and not clear, this is what we see when people speak. They start their sentence, they drop it halfway, they forget what they wanted to say. And when we translate this abrupt pieces of thought directly into English, it becomes a mess, directly from our first language. So you're basically practicing your thinking skills right now.
It's basically speaking in on a different language. It's a different thinking system.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a different thinking system, and you are pretty much, this is also a scientific fact, you develop your second language identity when you speak another language very well. We will never become native speakers. We're supposed to be born in an English-speaking country to be native speakers, but we can absolutely move closer to that level, which I call native-like fluency. But I think the result or the outcome is that you really develop another language identity. And when you speak Russian and when you speak English, you sound slightly different. The exercise that you mentioned, I do this a lot myself. When I listen to podcasts, it's not just to practice and to listen. The purpose is not just to listen. The purpose is to pay attention to the word combinations that I can use myself, because in order to express or communicate this thought, this idea of mine, the way I would have said it, would be probably with my Russian-speaking brain, I would have said it this way. But when I hear how native speakers say that and how they express the same idea, I go like, I would have never translated it this way, and it's just useless to translate. I can simply use it and apply it immediately in my own speech. That makes your language so much more natural. You sound more natural and you sound very clear.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've even been talking to kind of native speakers, and sometimes I got this kind of they are expressing an idea, but a little bit wordy.
Yeah.
And you need more words to explain the same thing.
It really depends. Sometimes you need more words in English to explain one simple Russian idea. Sometimes you need more words in Russian to explain one word in English that is just very dense in meaning. And you have to, translation is not enough. You have to understand the context and what it really means. So if I get it right, you measure your performance in communication by the feedback. If people get your message, then that's good. If people accept your insights, or if people take action, is that right?
Yeah, that's true. It's not like a monologue. In most cases, it's a dialogue. Based on the questions, I spot sometimes that probably I wasn't clear enough in conveying this idea or explaining this concept.
So what do you do with those moments, when you realize that, I probably wasn't clear enough? What do you do?
When it goes in my kind of business conversations, in many cases, I just trace them. And when I prepare like the next discussion, and I try to recall such situations, like this discomfort which came from this, and recall that in this specific time I wasn't really comfortable in explaining this idea. Maybe I should work a little bit more about how I would approach it this time. So this is the way
The way I like to do it, the way I like to approach the situations, if I notice that I feel discomfort because I cannot communicate my idea very clearly, and I see that people are not getting it either, so it means it's my problem. I have to communicate it better. I have to deliver it better. You can't really do much during a call. You can't really do much in real time, because we don't have so much time to analyze, to think, to rethink, and to change everything. It's just impossible. You always do this self-correcting work after speaking, because a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people think that you have to immediately speak correctly. No, you do this work after. But what I do after is, as you said, if I need to communicate it better or differently, I say it out loud always. Because if I only think about it, or if I write a few lazy bullet points about how I need to do better in the future, I will not do better in the future. I will repeat the same mistake.
That makes total sense, because even in neuroscience says that these are different modes of the brain. Like one is a creating mode, when you create something or create a speech or create a presentation. And second is more like editing or correcting mode, and they cannot be applied at the same time.
Yes.
I also even notice, and when I'm doing my presentation, you cannot do it and edit at the same time. You can only even do it and then edit. The same with the language skills. So you can talk, but you can approach editing only after some time.
The same with writing. I think you took the writing course as well, right? This is why.
I think I haven't.
No, you haven't taken one. But the same idea applies here. You write your first messy, ugly draft. It's called the first shitty first draft for a reason, because it's ugly, it's messy. But if you think about editing at the same time when you are supposed to just write it down and let it flow, it's impossible. First, you write it down, however messy it is, and then you spend your time editing. You're right. The same approach applies here. So many people struggle when they translate in their mind as they speak, because they want to say everything correctly now, but they also don't really know how to do the self-correcting work after.
I've been at this place some time ago when I was trying to speak and correct myself at the same times, and the natural outcome is you basically stubborn.
Yeah, you're just stuck, right?
You're
Like,
just stuck. You're just
yeah,
stuck, and
yeah.
you cannot do that because it blocks like your speech or.
And you're giving yourself too much work. Like you can't handle both at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it's important to know how to do the self-correcting work so that the next time you speak, you improve. You don't repeat the same mistake. I think I got the idea, and the idea is that, look, you cannot really tell people what they need to change in their business unless you understand what they do and what their business is. If we talk about language skills, I can't really tell a person what exercises exactly they need to do unless, or before I understand what is this person like, how do they learn, how much time they have. The same with small talk, right? You can't really decide how to talk about business before you make some small talk and you understand who this person is. And how does this translate to other spheres of life? Like you mentioned, personal well-being, healthy lifestyle, parenting.
Yeah. So it's these idea perfectly translates into everything, basically everything. So if you take healthy lifestyle, which is a combination of good eating habits, good sleep, working out, so everything can be traced and corrected. For example, at some point I was postponing like tracing my calories intake, and when I started to do so at the beginning, it was really slow when you need to check every single everything you eat. You need to check with the calories intake, composition of macronutrients, etc., and put it in a writing. And I made photos of everything I've eaten during the day
So you
next
take
to
pictures, right?
next to my palm. I started to realize that my calculations, my estimates were quite precise with the exact calculations. So I stopped doing this. And
So you mean you taught yourself to understand how many calories is here in this meal, right? How many calories is here? You mean you spent some time to teach yourself, right?
I've spent some time with quite a system, like tracing all of these.
So you meticulously followed that.
I followed that
system
pattern, but
until
I started to realize it on kind of quite naturally. And
so you intuitively know, right?
I intuitively know about the composition of a meal in front of me.
How much protein am I getting here?
How
Right?
much protein,
How many carbs?
high carbohydrates, and fat is there. So it became intuitive.
Before you decide how you need to change your diet, you need to actually understand first what is it that you eat and how much do you eat. So you had to understand how many calories you actually eat before you started adjusting your diet. Is that right?
Yeah, it's similar to consulting when you need to analyze it first in a very detailed manner. What are you eating exactly? How many calories in this specific food, or what is the composition? How does 300 grams look like?
Yes, exactly. What does it look like, right?
Yeah.
Many people imagine it differently, I bet.
Yeah.
Okay. So first you learn about yourself. You become aware of your habits and then you change them. What did you change about your eating habits after all this analysis?
I've designed kind of an appropriate or like desired composition of the food, of like macronutrients or like total calorie intake, and started to follow and understand. If I ate a big plate of pasta or like something that means that I got, I don't know, 60% of my daily calories. So then it's just I can eat maybe a couple of salads.
So you mean you created a ratio that works for you?
Yeah.
So you don't have to count every calorie anymore, but you
Yeah.
understand the ratio, right?
I understand the
How many-
ratio, and this works in the longer term.
Yeah, this works long term, exactly.
If you overeat one day, it's not a big deal.
I think maybe this is how I approach my workouts. I like, I used to plan every single move. Like, what do I do today? What do I do tomorrow? How many reps? But today I take, I still do it, but today I wake up and I know that I have to, I will work out today. It's not that I have to, I will. It's not even a question. But I wake up and I ask myself, what do I feel like doing today? And I have a very rough plan for a week. So I want to run twice a week, or I want to run twice this week, and I want to do some lifting maybe once a week, and I want to practice my handstand. So, and then I think, okay, how do I put my program together so that I do some stretching, some mobility work, some cardio, and some lifting? What is correct here, I think very correct, is that at the beginning of the journey, when you're just starting to understand, to learn to understand yourself, or when you start to learn to acquire a new skill, you really need to follow some initial plan meticulously to the letter, this was necessary,
Absolutely. In every single skill, you need a protocol to follow.
Yes, first you need a very specific protocol for maybe 2 or 3 months. Then you understand how you learn and how you eat and what works for you. A lot of people skip that process and they just say, okay, give me the program that I can apply, or give me instructions, but this instruction will not really work for you because you don't really know yourself well. So unfortunately, it's not possible to skip this initial stage where you have to follow the protocol very precisely. But then it all pays off.
Yeah, it pays off. It becomes your second nature, and it doesn't really require kind of focused effort and a lot of energy to keep and to maintain this protocol.
This is so true. I call it, it becomes what I usually say, it becomes the new norm. And when it is normal to me to eat this way, when it's normal to me to learn a language this way, I don't even think about it. I just do it on autopilot, kind of. I don't really think much about it. And you're right, it doesn't take so much energy.
Absolutely. It sticks, and then it's like...
But then you can continuously improve. It doesn't mean that you learn the basics, and it's easier to add on top of this basic knowledge. It's just easier. But when you don't have that basic knowledge, like a lot of people, even advanced students, they're still not very sure what articles are, what prepositions are, and it's really hard to build on top of that if you don't understand the basics.
Yeah, you kind of shift the span of your attention into a different area, and the attention is something which is really needed in our modern times, and this span of attention is a really kind of resource which is very limited and scarce.
Yeah, I agree with you. So it's attentiveness is very important. Attentiveness to yourself, attentiveness to other people, as you said, if you really want to improve your communication skills. Attentiveness to other people is key. Well, thank you. It's been a fantastic conversation. Very interesting. It was great talking to you, and thank you very much for sharing your insights and your experience.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and I also enjoy working with you and communicating with you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Yes. Guys, thank you very much for watching the video. If you have any questions for us, for myself, for Alex, please write them in the comments and we'll do our best to reply. See you in the next videos.